So the first speaker that I want to announce actually has, his work has touched me personally. I got to travel out to Nairobi, Kenya, and actually shadow some of the individuals that this work has affected. Let me introduce the CTO of a company called Twiga, here all the way from Nairobi with us, Caine Wanjau.
Hey everyone, nice to be with you all. I'm Caine Wanjau, CTO at Twiga Foods. I'm here to talk about what we do and how we're transforming lives through technology. So, Twiga's purpose, what is it? We aim to use technology to aggregate retail demand in African cities to provide low-cost access to better quality food. At the moment, we are doing 200 tons of produce. So this is produce we buy from farmers, managed through the value chain, and then to deliver to vendors who work out of corner shops all over Nairobi. And our aim is to get to 10,000 tons a day in 2025. But I want to give you a bit of a backstory around context and why we do what we do. So there's a $300 billion problem, or opportunity as we like to think of it, in sub-Saharan Africa. And this is what's happening today. We have a lot of people who spend a high proportion of their income on food and daily consumables. In the US, it's I think as low as 8%. In Europe, it's 16%. Some areas of Africa is as high as 80%. In Kenya, it's 55%. So we've seen an opportunity here, and we feel we can use technology to solve it. When we think of average consumption of produce and how this is done across a city, we find that a lot of people buy their produce through small shops. So formal groceries, supermarkets, the high-end malls, we only get 30% of produce sold through those channels. There are 180,000 small shops serving over 6.5 million people in Nairobi, daily produce. Now, we've decided to use technology to enable aggregation of retail demand. So how does this work? We work with farmers, so smallholder farmers primarily, and the idea here is we go to them, purchase their produce, we then pay them, manage the produce through the value chain, through to our fulfillment center, through to our depots, and through to our customers. And in essence, we've essentially brought down the cost to serve. We've also invested in efficient logistics. So what you tend to see is a lot of mishandling of food. You have high food losses. In Kenya, at least, it's 40 to 50%. In other places in Africa, you have losses of up to 80% due to what we call a post-harvest loss. So we've invested in a lot of material handling equipment to make this possible. We've also done a lot of things around value addition, so things like food safety certification. This is not something that's been done before, but because we're able to have a lot of traceability in our value chain and know where exactly the produce came from, this is something we're able to easily do as a company. We've also invested in a nice trading platform. So the idea here is as vendors, you can go online, order on m-commerce. We offer you financial services. So as a vendor, you don't have to go look for financing to buy your produce. This is something we can do through the technology we've enabled. M-commerce, e-commerce is a big play for us. So traditionally, all our orders have historically been mediated. So we'd have someone go to the vendor, place an order on behalf of the vendor through internal technologies. But we think through m-commerce and e-commerce, we can then transition and grow much, much faster. We've also invested in trying to get food and produce to vendors as quickly as possible. So through routing software, through logistics, through the analytics we're doing, we're able to get now consistent and shortest delivery time to our vendors. Now, technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. So we've actually thought of what's the ecosystem we need to build around all the platforms we're doing so that we can provide an efficient service. So one of the things we're thinking through is, do we have good people who work for us who are motivated to go and work for the customers and deliver to them? So we've thought about a lot of people, culture, how technology can enable this. Our key values are really own your problems, keep it simple, be good. Those are things we think about and how technology can enable that. And for us, I think as Twiga, we're trying to think through where do we take this. Right now, we're only in Nairobi, Kenya, but this is an opportunity across the continent. We have a lot of inefficient value chains. So in Nairobi, as I mentioned, or rather in Kenya, we lose 40 to 50% through to poor post-harvest handling. But just some of the countries I've pointed out in this map, Ethiopia, Congo, Tanzania, Nigeria, you have losses of as high as 80%. So our thinking is, how do we take what we've built as Twiga and then use this to scale all across the continent. We think through technology, through working efficiently, through building systems and being more efficient with farmers and vendors and in our supply chain, we can actually make a change in the continent. Lastly, I'd like to talk a bit about where Twiga goes next, what we call Twiga 2.0. In our value chain, we've seen we can use IoT, we can use smart routing, we can use commerce, we can use all these new technologies to bring change. But what's the key goal in all of this? For farmers, historically, who've always had to deal with brokers, for example, who take away their produce and don't pay them cash. For vendors who have to wake up at 4 a.m., go to the market, look for produce, take this back to their shop. There's a huge opportunity cost there because they only start selling at 11 or 12 o'clock. We are thinking more around what's the socioeconomic impact of what you're doing, rather than just thinking about technology in itself. We feel Twiga has a good opportunity to solve all these issues. As I mentioned, it's a $300 billion opportunity, and we're just scratching the surface and getting started. So thank you all for listening, and yeah, glad to meet you all. Thank you.